Hi, I'm Daniel and welcome to Kai Sound. Today we're going to be doing something a bit different. Today we're going to talk about restringing a guitar. Now this guitar has locking tuners, but other than that, the advice given in this video should apply to all other types of guitar. So starting off with the things you're going to need a string winder and string clipper, guitar polish or cleaner, fretboard cleaner or polish, some strings, and a cleaning cloth. Now the first thing you're going to want to do is loosen off the strings. Now to me it makes sense to have a pillow underneath the guitar neck to alleviate some of the pressure from the neck or headstock. After the strings have been loosened, what you want to do is cut the strings around the 12th fret to allow you to have plenty of string left to wind them up into small rounds to make them easy to throw away. You then want to push the strings out, taking care not to scratch the finish of your guitar by getting your hand underneath the string ends to stop them rubbing against the paint. What you want to do now is roll the strings into a circle and wrap them inside of themselves so they don't go springing everywhere and making them easier to clean up at the end. Because these things can get under your fingernails or poke your fingers and it's quite sore. There's also nothing worse than standing on a string later in the day, one that you've forgotten to clean up. Next up, you want to get a grip of the strings on the headstock end, flip the guitar over and slacken off each of the locking nuts. Then flip the guitar back over and pull the strings out. Again, you want to grip the strings together, wrap them into a circle and wrap them inside of themselves. Next up, you want to take this opportunity to clean away the dirt and grime that build up on your guitar over time. I find it's better to spray it onto the cloth as opposed to directly onto the guitar, but before you do this, you want to give the guitar a quick wipe to remove any of the dust that may be on it. Then you want to take a few sprays of polish onto the cloth and then wipe over the whole guitar. You then want to take special care when cleaning the pickups, as once the strings are on, they're incredibly hard to clean. They can also get covered in quite a lot of sweat from your fingers and shavings from strings. As they're magnetic, they attract metal things to them. Next up, you want to take some fretboard oil or lemon oil and cover the fretboard and frets, making sure to get all the frets and fretboard itself. Try and get as even a coverage as you can, going from fret to fret. This helps work away any dirt and grime that may have built up under your fingers. Again, fingers are pretty disgusting things, they get pretty sweaty and leave a lot of dirt and grime on your fretboard and on your strings. You then want to get your cloth and firmly rub the fretboard and frets, trying to remove as much grime as you can. If you don't do this, there's a good chance that your new strings will wear out far more quickly, given that there's already some corrosive materials for them to pick up when you play. Now I've heard that you have to be careful with lemon oil on certain types of fretboards. I've never personally had an issue with it, although I would advise that you make your own research about your guitar's fretboard and whether or not lemon oil would be safe to use for you. I'd hate for you to damage your instrument. Now this guitar has a self-lubricating nut, but if you don't have a self-lubricating nut, you may want to put some sort of lubricant in here like pencil or nut sauce. This helps the string slide through the nut effortlessly and greatly enhances tuning stability. Now you want to wash your hands. It's a really good idea to use dish soap, as this is great at removing the oil from your fingers. If you don't do this, you're going to transfer oils and dirt into the strings before you've even had a chance to play them. This added oil early on may shorten the string's life as well. Next up, you want to load the strings through your bridge, pulling all of them all the way through, checking for any snags. As it turns out, cats love restringing guitars as well. Next up, you want to load the strings into the tuners at the top of the headstock. You want to make sure the tuning peg lines up with the orientation of the neck so that the string can run straight through it, pull them fairly tight, and then lock them in place. Once the string's locked in place, snip off the excess, and that leaves you with a clean finish. With the excess, be sure to wrap it into a circle to stop it getting away from you and making it easier to dispose of. Repeat this process for all 5 strings. Now the reason that I've taken all the slack out of the string before locking the tuner is that winds tend to be the cause of most tuning instability. When you bend and release a string, the string moves through the nut and around the peg if you have winds. Locking tuners manage to avoid this by not having any winds at all. Now, winds are a necessary evil on non-locking tuner guitars. There is a locking technique you can use, which I can link in the description, and that should help with any tuning instability your guitar may have if it doesn't have the luxury of locking tuners. I think it's Goto have a good video showing you what happens when you bend a string and why it is that they advocate the use of locking tuners. I'll also link that in the description. Now before you tighten up the strings, something I like to do is take a piece of foam and put it underneath the strings behind the nut. This dampens vibrations and overtones, which can make life difficult if you want to play tight percussive music due to the overtones not letting gates close naturally and generally causing resonances in the guitar that you may not have wanted. With this in place, you should now have removed the majority of the overtones in the guitar. I like to repeat this process at the bridge as well. Now next up, you want to tune the guitar in playing position. The reason you want to tune it in playing position is that when it's lying on its back, the tension on the neck is different, meaning that the strings will not actually be in tune when put in playing position due to this different tension. Now as you tune each string, you're going to increase the tension on the neck, so make sure you go back and tune each of them until all 6 sit in tune once they have individually been tuned. Next up, you want to stretch the strings. The way that I do this is by fretting at the first fret to stop the string popping out of the nut, grabbing the string at around the 15th fret and giving them some medium pulls. You don't want to pull them crazy hard, but you do want to pull them hard enough that when you release the string has gone out of tune. Now I like to repeat this until when I release the string, the pitch is moved by less than 1 semitone. It's going to be nearly impossible to put this much tension and stretch through a string and not have it change pitch at all, but if you do this too much, you can result in losing some of the snap from the new string. So for me, the 1 semitone trick seems to do the job. Now that the strings have been stretched, you want to check that the guitar stays in tune when you're playing it and doing bends. If it's still in tune at this point, then you know that you've stretched them enough. Now that the guitar has been restrung, you want to go back around it again with a cloth and wipe off any oil that may have built up onto the guitar whilst you've been cleaning and restringing it. That being said, given you've washed your hands, you did wash your hands, right? Then you shouldn't have transferred that much oil at all, as the dish soap should have dealt with most of the oil in your hands. Couple of things I should mention are if you've changed string gauge, make sure that this hasn't affected your intonation or neck relief. There are plenty of videos online showing you how to check these things, and you may also want to check that your nut slots are appropriate for the new string gauge. And there you have it, you've got a restrung, cleaned, stretched and tuned guitar ready to go.